Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. How's it going? Hope everybody's doing well. Happy Wednesday. We will get started here in just a few minutes. Once the everybody's had a chance to jump in here and get started and all the good stuff that goes along with it. So, good stuff. Hopefully everybody's doing all right. You guys are having a good week. So yeah, we're going to be diving into some of the stuff that I'm working on, in addition to some updates for the Encore and RC workbook that I've been working on, stuff like that. I know I've been a little radio silence on the channel lately, but there's some stuff like that, stuff that I've got to go through and work through. So, what's up, Mr. Castro? Thanks for stopping by and hanging out. So we'll get started here in just a minute or two. Wanted to give everybody a chance to hop in that wanted to join, and we could chat for a few minutes before we get down to it. But like I said, we'll provide you guys some updates on some stuff and get into the meat and taters of what we're going to be talking about tonight. So you can see I've got a lab that I'm working on here for some stuff and all that good stuff. So, like I said, hopefully you guys are having a good week. Everything's working out for you. You're not having to execute fire drills or firefight or troubleshoot anything. Hopefully your week has been pretty quiet. So, I'm next Saturday, I'm leaving for Vegas for 2 weeks, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to Cisco Live for the first week, and then the second week I'll be out there is going to be enjoying Vegas. Be the first time out there. Not the first time out there. We've been out there before, but it'll be good to go out there and just chill. Last time we were out there, we had to fly back right away once Live was over. So, looking forward to it. So, if any of you guys are going to be at Live and you would like to meet in person, I would be cool with trying to coordinate something if you guys are interested in doing that. You guys can hit me up on any of my socials, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, or LinkedIn. Just send me a message and stuff like that. If you guys are going to be there, happy to find where you're hanging out and we can meet for the first time. That'd be kind of cool. Firewall upgrades for you, huh, Wade? Oh, those are always fun. What particular firewall are you upgrading? Is it a software upgrade or a hardware upgrade or a combination of both? That'd be those are always fun to do. So it's good stuff there. So we're at a few minutes past the hour, and I've got a decent amount of folks watching concurrently. So I want to give everybody just a couple of quick updates as to where I'm at with the workbook, stuff like that. There's a couple of comments that were dropped on the channel recently. I have been really busy with work, so I have not been able to dig into anything lately. I've been traveling a lot too, so it's one of those things where I have to dig into design and all that good stuff. Last Sunday, I hit a Cisco bug on a 9606R while deploying them, but was resolved on time. Oh, that's always good. Hopefully it was a reboot in 5 type of situation is what fixed it for you. Those are always fun to deal with. So, good stuff there. So, I wanted to give everybody a quick update on the book. So, the book is coming along. I have completed the initial configuration section, and I'll go ahead and just bring this over here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So, I have completed the initial configuration section. I've also completed the core deployment tasks and the solution, as well as the advanced networking implementation and the verifications for those. So all those sections are done. So I have ran into some issues with the lab a couple of times where I've had to reboot the entire environment, and I'm thinking that might be an issue with the size of the lab. So I've been thinking about sizing it down a little bit and making it not so big in certain areas. So I'm still trying to figure that piece out, but I don't think I'm gonna have it done. Like I'm not gonna have the workbook done before I go to Cisco. So it'll probably be a little bit longer than that. Probably, if I had to guess, late June is what I'm gonna put if I had to put a date on the calendar so that I can get through it. And the reason why I'm thinking about potentially sizing down the size of the topology is because of the fact that there are certain things that I want to be able to test out. Like I want to be able to go through, when it comes to the troubleshooting section, I want the troubleshooting section to actually be worth the time and effort. So I'm thinking about sizing the lab down a little bit. I'll pull it up real quick just so you guys can have reference. So this is the lab, right? This is for the entire Encore and an RC series. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm thinking about getting rid of the colo, the DR site for the disaster recovery site. I'm thinking about completely just getting rid of this section and taking it down to, instead of having two service providers, do a single service provider, and for internet. So I would bring the lab in size down just a little bit, probably close to 10, maybe 12 devices, and I can still do a lot of my testing for that. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to be able to test multiple areas at the same time. So that's one of the issues that I'm running into is, for example, if I'm on, say, PC 4 and I want to troubleshoot DHCP in all the different ways that you can do that, I'll be going through and trying to, for example, the port will be in the wrong VLAN, or I don't have the helper address on the SVI for DHCP relay, or I've got the wrong something in the DHCP pool is incorrectly configured, something like that. Multiple places that you could test out DHCP, and I'm finding that it's been wonky is probably the best way I can put it when it comes to getting that to be consistently able to resolve. So, for example, if I put in the wrong default router in the DHCP pool, it, like, for some reason it doesn't update correctly. I have to, like, bounce stuff and reboot, and it just doesn't give a very clean troubleshooting scenario to where if you were on real hardware, you wouldn't have these problems. So I'm kind of rethinking some of the stuff now that I've gotten it all working and I'm working through the troubleshooting section. So I really want to be able to put out something that you guys can potentially actually utilize, and it's going to be a good learning tool. I'm not just going to run through it, get it all up and running, and then have it like miss some parts of it work here, some other parts work there, stuff like that. I want it to be legitimately able to be troubleshot. So I know not everybody has the ability of taking a lab this size and getting it working. So I am being cognizant of that. So I'm thinking about trimming it down just a little bit in sheer size and making it a little bit more doable for folks that are on like a GNS3 platform, or if they're on even G, whether community or pro version, and going about that. So those are the things that I'm thinking about doing. I have dreams of grandeur when it comes to the size of the labs that I want to do, and some of all the cool stuff that I want to play with. So, but I am trying to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of folks don't have the means or the capability to do stuff like this. So, but the cool thing about the size of the lab is it gives me a lot of flexibility to test a lot of things. So, that's what I'm working through right now. So as long as you guys are just willing to be patient with me when it comes to making sure it comes out correctly, because I'd rather put out quality content that's actually going to be useful for you guys versus just trying to put something out. It's not about quantity for me, it's about quality. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So that's kind of the sticking point that I'm at right now that I need to figure out. So if it takes a little bit longer to get it out, I do apologize, but it's just one of those things where you don't realize what kind of problems you're going to have until you're literally right there. So with that being said, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I wanted to pull up some of the comments here that have been left lately, and I wanted to try to answer some of them. They've been very slow coming in recently, which is fine. I don't expect people to comment all the time or every day. So I'm just going to go ahead and run through a handful of these comments just to try to keep up with what's going on and all that good stuff. So, like I said, there was some comments left. People reach out to me directly through LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that, and they ask me about the SD-WAN updates. I do plan on doing a SD-WAN update, so it'll be the newest version, 20.9. It is on my list of things to do. If the Encore and RC workbook wasn't taking so much time to troubleshoot, to try to get things where they want to be, I probably would be further along with it. But then again, that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking about trying to size it down a little bit, and I probably have to re-engineer the book's flow. But that is my issue to worry about, not yours. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these questions here. So we'll go ahead and knock some of these out real quick. I might have to do a little bit of digging to try to answer them, but we'll see what happens. So, do you guys receive these messages constantly on the CLI? Memory, C group, out of memory, kill process, Java. I've never seen this message before, so I don't know what it means. My out of memory, my first initial thought on this is maybe you're out of space for storage on vManage. I don't know, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. I would check how much storage you have on the Eve server that you're running this on, assuming you're running it inside of Eve. But that's the first thing I would check to see if that wouldn't fix the problem. Does this contain firewall's configuration? No, and it won't, because the ASA firewall that's in the SD-WAN series that I did was configured during the videos that I recorded. So there's no initial configuration file for that. There's no post configuration for that. So just be cognizant of those things. So one of the things that was asked about was when you do BGP as your PE to CE routing protocol with an MPLS provider, and you have two routers at the same site that have access to the same internal LAN networks, and you're advertising this, you're doing BGP peerings, and you're redistributing, or you're advertising the LAN networks out to the service provider. Those routes are going to go out to the PE routers, be exchanged in the BGP VPN-v4 architecture, and then come back to those other PE routers, and then those routes will be sent back to the customer edge. That's where site of origin comes into play, and it's an extended community value. So the comment here, so the site of origin attribute has the routes learned but not advertised back to the LAN. So this means the routes are still being learned. So if you were to look at how the routes are propagated, you'll see that if you're on, it might actually be helpful if I do a little bit of whiteboarding with this one. If you have CE1, and you have PE1, and you have CE2, and you have PE2, then you have the LAN sitting behind the customer edges. right? And then you have, let's say there's a route reflector here, and these guys are BGP peered to the route reflector. If I take 10.1.1.0/24 on CE2 and CE1, and I advertise this subnet to both routers, so both PE routers are going to pick it up. They're going to exchange routes with the route reflectors, and vice versa. They're both going to learn about the route. What site of origin's job is to do is you'll set the community value, and you'll set it in an outbound format. So you'll set the community on the peering. And what you're doing with that is you're basically saying, if you're receiving a route, don't propagate it outbound. That's what's happening. So if you're learning this subnet here, it gets learned here, here, propagated to here, then propagated to here, and then propagated back down. CE1, the idea is on PE1, you're going to not propagate that back down to the customer edge 1 router. So that's the whole point of site of origin. So I don't know what you mean. So the site of origin attribute has the routes learned but not advertised back to the LAN. So if you don't have site of origin turned on, what should end up happening is the CE routers should still receive the route back. That's why site of origin was instantiated, to prevent that. That's what's happening there. So yes, the routes are still being learned. That's why site of origin is added to the neighbor peering so that you don't propagate the route. If the link physically between them goes down, what would end up happening? If you're talking about this link, or if you're talking about this link. If you're talking about this one here, then no, whichever connection is still active, assuming that you have a connection to the internal LAN that still has access to the site or to the subnet. As long as one of the CE routers still sees it being advertised via IGP, it's still going to get propagated. Now, if you're talking about a CE to PE peering, that's a different story. If the peering goes down, then obviously the route advertising goes away. If the EIGRP link between them goes down between them, what would end up happening? Then you would end up having a scenario where you would, if site of origin is turned on, then, well, let's say that there's devices back here. Let's say users are connected to this, and CE1 and CE2 are doing, there's a virtual IP address, HSRP, VRRP, whatever it might be. Then if a link goes down between the two, no harm, no foul. So it depends on how deep the network goes. If there's, if you have distribution here and then you've got users hanging off this, and then these guys have EIGRP adjacencies with the distribution switch, that's a bit of a different scenario. Then you would end up you'd have to wait for reconvergence or for EIGRP to come back up, because if the link goes down, guess what? So does the routes. The routes go away. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking at how all this stuff comes together. Hopefully that answers your question. What would happen if this configuration was done on the CE? Is there a way to prevent this BGP path from being advertised from the CE in the first place? You can. I've never done it in the opposite direction. I don't know how that would work. So I don't know, because I've never done it. So not to say that you couldn't do some filtering, but here's the reality of it. Could you do some filtering? You could. You could have some filters on. Think of it like this: if you've got R1 and you've got R2, you have R3 and you have R4, and there's LAN segments sitting behind these guys, and then you have connectivity like this, and then you're doing EIGRP routing here and you're doing BGP here. Well, if there's BGP routing here and you got peerings, this is a BGP advertised route, and then you have EIGRP peerings between these guys, and then you're doing redistribution between BGP and EIGRP. So EIGRP external is 170, and let's say we're doing eBGP here, or we'll say IBGP. So you have an 80 at 200, right? Well, depending on how you're doing it, you don't need an IGP over here. So AD should take care of a lot of your problems. But if you're doing mutual redistribution, is there a possibility of route feedback? And the answer to your question is there is. So that's where you would have to deal with route tagging, where you would tag, say, these routes with, 1,000 and these with 2,000, for example. And then what you would do is on the other router, you would say, if you receive in tag 1,000, drop it. Don't redistribute it back in from EIGRP to BGP, or if you receive tag 2,000, don't redistribute it back in. The idea is to filter based off the tag. If you redistribute based off the tag, then you're going to filter those routes out. That's why if you're doing multiple locations or redistribution between two different routing protocols, period, you can match on with prefix lists. You can do that, but that tends to need some sort of specificity in the prefix list itself, right? You need to have some sort of way of matching on the routes, the subnets, where if you do it with route tags, you don't have to worry about that, because if you do the route tag, every route that gets redistributed from router 1 mutually between EIGRP and BGP gets propagated. It gets a tag depending on which way it's going. And then it comes down here to router 2. If it sees 1,000, it's going to drop it. Same thing with router 1. If he sees tag 2,000, he'll drop, because you don't want to have a route learned this way, come back this way, and then get redistributed, and then it comes over here, and then you end up with a big loop, right? You want to avoid that. That's the whole purpose. So if you use tagging, you're going to prevent that from happening. At least that's the intent. So that's where that comes into play. So that's basically that. There are some other questions down here. I don't know what Steven was mentioning or referring to. If I had to guess, I would say he's referring to topology that I shared at that time. I forget what I was showing, but the topologies will always be made to download once everything for that particular topology is ready to be downloaded. What specs of server which running labs in EVE-NG? So I have their Dell R810s with 4x10 core E7 4870s and 250 to 500 gigs of RAM per box. It's a pretty straightforward setup. So I like whiteboard sessions since it's kind of on the fly. PowerPoints are okay, but sometimes it's hard to keep focus on them. If you plan to show flow and stuff, I have seen nice diagrams made with Draw.io. So yeah, there's that's always a good stuff. Go ahead, Irfan. You can fire away with your dumb IBGP question. No question's dumb, actually, but go ahead, fire away. Amazing job, Rob. I'm diving into your series. Thanks. Sorry to ask, but are you Peter Hayes' BRMC brother? Nope. Definitely not his brother. That's for sure. Sir, there is no order of videos. I can't understand when I downloaded that I don't know which is number 1 and which is number 2. So is there any order for videos? If not, please add it. So you're talking about the fundamentals. There is no order for those videos. You can just watch them in any order you want. So, okay, going back to the question, in which scenarios would you use an IGP in an IBGP topology, and where would you not use an IGP and just use the network statement in BGP? Okay, so what you're asking is something like this. You've got R1, R2, R3, R4. And for the sake of argument, they're all point-to-point links. And over here, we're doing EIGRP, right? EIGRP is advertising the loopbacks, for example, of all these devices. And so EIGRP's R1 has peerings with R1 and R3 have peerings to R2, and all the loopbacks are being learned. And you decide you want to run IBGP over the top. So you do your IBGP peerings via the update source command. So you form IBGP peerings here and here, and then here and here. Yep. And then over here, you're not running an IGP. You're running straight BGP. So you run, and it could be IBGP. It doesn't matter. So you're doing a BGP peering directly here, and you're doing a BGP peering directly here. You run into a caveat, though. You have a full mesh requirement with IBGP. So if you don't peer R1 to R3 as well, you're going to run into a problem, right? So you have route propagation issues with IBGP. So for the sake of argument, we're going to assume that we're doing eBGP because you don't have the full mesh requirement. So, and then you have a LAN segment off R4 and you have a LAN segment off R2. So the question really boils down to, and correct me if I'm wrong, that R2 and R4 need to exchange routing information with each other, and one side is going to run IGP and BGP over the top using IGP as its underlay connectivity, and then the other side is going to do straight eBGP peering, and you want to get the routes to propagate the way you need them to. That's essentially what the direction you're going with this. Am I tracking correctly? Hopefully that you're probably gonna say yes. I'm gonna continue to go that direction. Which way is better? They're both gonna work the same. So from an operational perspective, if I come in here and I use the network statement here for this subnet, but I do redistribution here on R2, and I redistribute the R2 subnet into R2, and I do the network statement on R4, that information is still going to get propagated to R1 and R3, respectively. And then R1 and R3 are both going to get it and then propagate it down to where they've got to go. That's essentially it doesn't matter which way you go with it. So are there scenarios where it makes more sense to do IGP in the underlay and BGP in the overlay versus doing BGP and not having an underlay at all? It really depends on the goal. So I would say if you have a specific need, I tend to like having an IGP in the underlay. So for your underlay, I like using an IGP. And then for the overlay, I like using BGP whenever I can, because it gives me very clear separation of underlay from overlay when I'm looking at routing tables. It's, where would you getting at? Where would you apply an IGP? It really doesn't matter. To me, it's a personal preference. So I could go either way, depending on what I'm trying to do. If I am, let's look at it this way. If I am doing like a spine leaf environment, so I got spine 1, spine 2, I got leaf 1, leaf 2, leaf 3. And for the sake of argument, these guys are fully connected like this in a spine leaf environment. I've got servers hanging off of leaf 1 and leaf 2, and leaf 3 is my exit leaf going out to whatever it might be. I go to a firewall, then I go out here to my core. That's supposed to be a C for core. And then I come up to my LAN. Right? I would do a IGP in the underlay, OSPF, IS to IS, it doesn't really matter. And then I would do BGP in the overlay. Right? So these guys would all BGP peered. These would be route reflectors. And that would go that way. Now, I would not, where it really comes down to isn't necessarily whether or not to use an IGP. It really comes down to how do you scale BGP. So depending on the size of your environment and the deployment, would I recommend full mesh over route reflection? And the answer to that question is I will always go route reflection whenever I have the opportunity to, because it's going to cut down on control plane. So especially in route reflection, you only can work with that with iBGP. Keep that in the back of your mind. So if you do eBGP, you can't do route reflection. So you're stuck having to do some sort of peering design where you can maintain an eBGP design. But if you're going to be doing something like this, that's the direction I would go. Is I would do IGP in the underlay, BGP in the overlay, just to get propagation to work and stuff like that. Is there one way better than the other? I mean, one of the guys that I work with now we have a common agreement. There are 6 different ways to get the same thing done in networking. How is one way better than the other? No. I can't tell you that using an IGP is going to make your BGP deployment any faster or better. It's really not going to make that much of a difference. So, are there cases where you could do full? I tend to like the idea of using IGP and then peering to a loopback and having multiple loopback to loopback peerings, simply for the fact that there's usually more than one way to reach the loopback address. If a connection between 2 devices goes down, at least you're going to have an alternative path. So if you've got you have an R1, you have an R2, you have an R3, and you have an R4, right? These guys are all IGP peered to each other, and everybody's advertising a loopback, right? What I like to do is I like to do loopback to loopback peering. Simply for the fact that there's usually going to be more than one way to peer via the loopbacks. If this link goes down, even though that's the shortest link between R1 and R2, you still have an alternative path this way. That's how I like to go about doing things, because it gives you flexibility. Is that going to be a bad idea? I would say it's not necessarily a bad idea until it doesn't work. That's the way I would look at it. So there are times when, if depending on the design and the expectations of the outcome, there are times where I get rid of IBGP and I go straight eBGP, and I do a 4-byte AS. And you can use the 4-byte AS stanza to build out like a hierarchy, so that you know, based off of the first part of the 4-byte ASN, that you're at a particular location, and then the other part of your autonomous system number is the device ID, so you know where you're at. So in this case, you would not use IBGP because it's not full mesh, right? So I would use IGP here. So I would use IGP. I would use IGP in this particular case because of the fact that you've got more than one path to a given IP address. So you have the flexibility of doing that. That I would do that. So that's where I would go with that type of a design. So, but there's best practices out there for BGP on purpose, because this type of stuff comes up, and yeah. So, so in this case, you would not use IBGP because it's not full mesh, right? You still would, right? You could, because it's not big enough to really have a route reflector. You could, right? You could make, say, this guy right here a route reflector, and then do peerings to like this. That would work as well. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is how many. If you look at a network diagram or a topology, and you can see how you could roll this out. So you could make all the edge devices route reflectors, and then peering to other route reflectors, right? So that no matter what ends up happening, the routes are received and propagated. So what that really comes down to is you kind of have to monkey around with what's possible, right? So you could make this guy a route reflector as well, and then he could peer with all these guys, right? There is no wrong way per se to how to make it work. It's just one of those things where if you're dealing with hundreds of routers and it's a full mesh deployment and you've got high CPU, it might be a BGP issue. Reducing the control plane down to a route reflector design might make more sense from CPU utilization, stuff like that. So these are some things just to keep in the back of your mind when you're understanding BGP design. Is one way worse than the other? No. I would say that they all could work the same. Now, could you take what I've got drawn here and then do IBGP peerings on the physically, like the directly connected networks? You could. Would it converge the same way? At first glance, I would say yes, but I would ask you, well, why are you running it that way? What was the goal with that? Because I never ever assume why you're doing something. I can be like, okay, this is how I see this, what was the driver or motivation? Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. Okay, like, okay, well, my suggestion would be to do it this way instead, because this makes more sense. And to use an IGP in the underlay, do loop back to loop back peerings. If it's a little bit bigger than this, maybe 20 or 30 boxes, I would do route reflection, and we're not have to worry about scale. So there's another thing you could do when you're dealing with route reflection and really, really big designs is you can do the BGP dynamic peering. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before, but you've got dynamic peering. And basically what that does is it's the listen command in BGP. And as far as I know, this is only supported in iOS and Nexus. So what you can do is you can configure your device in such a way where you can learn all your BGP peerings as long as you have an incoming BGP session coming to you from a known good source address, like a loopback address. You'll accept the BGP peering and then you'll instantiate it, but it won't be a manually defined peering on that box. It'll just be dynamically learned. Route reflectors will do this a lot. So it's something else you can use. I don't think it's supported in XR. The only thing I've ever seen it done is on Nexus and iOS, or iOS XE. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking at BGP scale, is doing that. I've done that before with DMVPN quite a few times when, 7, 8, 9 years ago, when I was doing a lot of DMVPN deployments. We would use the BGP listen command for the spokes, and we would form tunnels that way. And it made it really, really easy to scale. Instead of having hundreds of BGP peering IP addresses and neighbor statements, you would do a single one, and then you would just connect to your route reflector, and then the routes would get propagated. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any other design questions and stuff like that, feel free to throw it in the chat, and I'll see what I can do about answering them. But yeah, you can totally do that. So there's that. So beyond that, I was just looking through here. Oh, okay. So in which scenario would you use IGP like OSPF to form an IBGP peering? And no worries, dude. All good. So yeah, it's good stuff. So that's pretty much that. I wanted to pivot a little bit, get out of here, and talk a little bit about where I am certification-wise. So we'll go over here to Cisco, and we will look at certifications, and we will look at let's see here. So I'm looking at design. Now I'm taking the DE written at Cisco Live. I'm actually looking forward to taking it. So sport exams and training. So I'm taking the written at Cisco Live. So I've been studying for that. It's a lot to do, and unfortunately, the drawback to it is that when you're diving into the exam topics are very, very bland. There's not a whole lot in here for reference. You have to know, because we look at the way that it's broken out, you have to be able to look at, you have to understand architecture, you have to understand design, you have to understand modeling, you have to understand business driver, stuff like that. And you have to be able to look at LAN, WAN, Internet Edge, campus, data center, wireless, security. What else is out there? You'd have to do some cloud. So there's a lot of different things to look at when it comes to how an architect or a design engineer is going to look at things, and that's what I do every day. So that's my main job, is to understand how stuff is put together. I talk to customers on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a customer the other day, and the they are today they're currently using routers on a private WAN circuit. They've got an ELAN set up between all of their remote locations and their data center and their main location, and they're doing some basic routing over the top of it, and it works out great. There's no issues in the network to speak of, but they are they know they need to modernize a little bit more than they already are. So I was talking to them about what their modernization efforts are because I don't ever recommend something like a solution or capability before I know where they're going with it, because it's like you walk into a car dealership, right? You walk into a car dealership, you might not know exactly what kind of car you want to buy. You have a general idea. You might have a monthly payment you're willing to spend up to and things like that. But you walk into a car dealership, and typically there's going to be a car salesperson that's going to walk up to you and be like, asking you what you're looking for, stuff like that. Some people are pushier than others. They really, really want to close the sale, and I can respect that. But at the same point in time, it's just like, if I need your help, I'll come find you, that type of stuff. So I'll look up stuff. The idea is to understand. You have to understand what it is that the customer is trying to accomplish, right? Business goal. What is there a business driver? There isn't always a business driver, right? So people always talk, what's the business driver? Well, the reality of it is there isn't always something from the business coming down to the engineering or IT staff saying, hey, we are here, we need to be here, right? That's not always the case. I'd say between 60 and 70% of the time that is the case, where you're going to have a business driver. That's the reason why you're talking to the customer in the first place. Not always the case, though. In this particular customer, they don't have a business driver. There's nothing wrong with their network today. So why is Rob talking to this customer about having them move away from where they're at to going to some other design? And the answer to that question is because when you look at how they're set up today, it might make sense financially. Can you save them a little bit of money? So some customers are like, he perked right up. He's like, tell me more. So it's like, because who isn't wanting to save some money, right? Everybody wants to save a couple of bucks. So we talked to them about, cost savings and what we could do for them and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily trying to sell a particular product. It's help me understand your environment. What have you got going on? What are the pitfalls? What are the complications? Do you guys have any issues that you're facing day to day? Or in the sales world, they refer to it as troubled versus untroubled. And what is the unforeseen value? Like, do they not realize that what you're trying to show them is what they actually need? So there are aspects of it that come into play where there's a sales specific aspect that you have to take into consideration. And one of the things that I did with the job that I'm currently in is I had to go through some sales specific training when I first was brought on board. And that kind of helped me understand the sales world a little bit, because I come from the engineering world where I'm looking at, okay, I know this box and this software version does all these cool things. Which one of those 30 things do I care about implementing for this customer, or is needed in order to meet this customer's needs? So you have to keep some of the stuff in the back of your mind when you're talking to them. In this particular case, the customer didn't have a business driver to change their transport, but at least they were untroubled. Nothing was wrong with it. So I was like, okay, well, that's great and all, but what if I could give you more security? What if I could give you analytics and insight to your network that you don't already have today? And he goes, tell me more. So it was one of those things where, you have to frame things up so that it looks palatable. It's like no different than you walking, you're walking in the grocery store and you're not exactly sure what type of meat you want to buy. You walk in the store or what it is you want to pick up for dinner that night. You walk in, you look up and down the aisles, and you're like, oh, that looks pretty good. I'm going to get that. you kind of window shop a little bit. If you can pique somebody's interest and, hopefully provide them some value, that's going to possibly help. And that's pretty much what we did. We showed them a high-level overview of what it is we were suggesting, where they are today, and where we could see them going tomorrow. And my job is to be able to paint a picture of what that might look like. So we have current state, we have future state. Here's how we get from point A to point B. What's the flow of that look like? That's my job. So as an architect, my job is to try to help them see what the future could look like. And they really liked it. So now we're taking that conversation further and further so that I can understand the complexities of what they've got going on. Now, how much of that relates to the design aspect of it? Quite a bit. There's a lot of stuff that I have to take into consideration with what they're doing. Whether resilient, scalable, and secure modular networks, traditional and software-defined architectures, constraints, requirements, operational, application behavior needs, business requirements, implementation plans, migration, and transformation. Literally every one of these things is a technical point for me. Same thing with design, service design. It's got to be able to do all of these things. They don't have a regulatory or a data governance per se, but that doesn't mean that they won't in the future. And so my goal is to put solutions in place that are going to meet the need. And a lot of customers, they don't like it when you start talking product. Like, they don't care what particular firewall or what particular router or what particular VPN client you're going to be putting in play. A lot of times, especially when you get to like the VP, the C-suite, senior director, decision makers, they don't care. They really don't. Their job is to steer the ship, and they're going to rely on the folks that are lower level, your network managers, your directors, your engineers. You're going to say, you know what? I don't know this stuff, so I do, but I'm putting myself in their shoes. I don't know this stuff as well as you do, so you tell me what you think is a good choice to go with, and I'm going to trust your judgment, and we're going to go this particular direction. So as long as the dollars and cents, and things line up. So that's what we did. We had that conversation with them, and we were able to show them what was possible. They liked what they were hearing, so we have follow-up meetings to talk to them about getting them from where they are to where they want to be. So it gave them some flexibility in that respect. So there's quite a few bullet points in here that do directly relate to it. So for example, when you talk about solutions based off business continuity and operational stability, you have recovery point objective, you've got return on investment, you've got capital expenditure, operational expenditure, cost analysis, risk reward. How long is it going to take, and what is my rate of return? So there's a lot of things that come into play with how this works, and it's my job to be able to frame it so that they can understand where we're going with it. So I end up having conversations with the engineering team because of my technical background, and I say, okay, listen, I need to know some details. What do you got going on here? What do you got going on over there? Those type of things, so that I can understand how I'm going to get you from point A to point B. So once I understand that, it doesn't have to be super, super detailed. I don't have to get down to the bit level with you. I can, but more often than not, I'm not talking that low level. I'm talking more high level. It's like, well, how would I get let's say, for example, they've got EIGRP running over DMVPN. Okay, cool. So, or they're running EIGRP or BGP or whatever it is. We're running OSPF over our WAN. Okay, cool. So broadcast mode, obviously, and your HQ is your designated router. And he's like, it is. I said, okay, cool. So we end up taking a look at how they have everything stood up and working, and I'm like, okay, this is totally doable. I was like, we'll have to, stand up some head-end devices for your VPN connectivity if we're going to move you from, ELAN over to internet. We're going to need firewalls so we can increase your security posture, that type of stuff, and all the cool whiz-bang wow stuff that we can do with that. So the customer was more focused on how do we get from where we are today to where you're suggesting we go. And I'm like, great, glad you asked that. And so I'm able to point them in the direction of that, and they were like, oh, okay, that actually isn't as complicated as I thought it would be. And I'm like, exactly. I was like, it really just a matter of let's sit down, let's whiteboard it out, and let's figure out the details so that I can put together a game plan, and then I put it into like a high level flow chart of here's where we're at, here's where you want to go, and this is how we're suggesting you get there. And whenever I've done it that way, and I talk about a phased approach where I'm not trying to do everything in day one, because one thing you don't want to do is overwhelm whoever you're talking to. Some folks can handle it, other folks cannot. They will be just like, pump the brakes, hold on, guys, this is too much. So you have to be able to read the room a little bit and be like, okay, we're flexible. We can do this pretty much however you want. It really depends on what your capabilities are. Well, how quickly do you want to get from where you are to where you want to be, and things like that. So it's actually really cool having those conversations with folks, because then you get to see you're steering them in the direction that you want them to go in, and to me that's where a lot of the fun comes into play. So I really enjoy having those conversations and being able to whiteboard stuff out, and it's cool because the customer, he was even like, I know you're like some sort of high level Cisco engineer kind of person. He's like, but he's like, I like the fact that you're able to put it in terms that anybody can understand. He's like, you're not trying to kill me with technical jargon. You're keeping it high level so that everybody that's here can understand it. And I was like, well, that's just kind of my nature. I was like, I've always been able to articulate technical to non-technical, and that's my goal. So it's always fun doing that. You know, I do that quite a bit. I go to customers all the time, and we have those type of conversations and stuff like that. So it's something I've actually gotten quite good at, is having those technical conversations and things like that. So that's pretty much that, guys. It's CCDE it looks very demanding, and one of the things that I plan on doing, and before I wrap up here with tonight, is I'm going to continue working on the NRC and Encore workbook, but I think what I'm going to do is, yeah, you're right. The soft skills are missing with the IT folks. That's very, very true. You have to be able to, if you take an engineer who's always been heads down, pounding on the keyboard or clicking in the GUI his entire career, and he can talk technical all day long, but he can't put into basic terms why he needs that BGP peering to AWS. That's a problem. That's something that I feel like a lot of engineers could definitely improve upon. And you're 100% right. The soft skills are very, very important. So very, very important. So what I'm planning on doing, probably once I get back from Vegas, is I want to go and take the Enterprise series, the workbook, and I want to start recording videos for that. And getting those, I want to stand it up, and I'll take you guys from start to finish. Let's see, not sure. Had a sysadmin tell me he couldn't route 169.254 a few days ago. Coworker's still mad about it. Now that's just funny, dude. That is just funny. Yeah, it's a non-routable subnet. Anyway, so I'm planning on recording the videos to the workbook, and hopefully that'll be out. I'm probably going to release them in waves because there's a lot of videos to do, and that'll be I'll go through the workbook from top to bottom, and I'll probably, as I'm going through the workbook, I'll probably do a couple of minor updates for it. Well, that's one of the things that I'm looking at doing, is getting that done. And that'll allow me to focus on getting the NRC workbook done here pretty soon as well. And then once I've done all that and I've passed the DE written, my goal is, with this topology right here, is I want to start digging into some other stuff. I want to do some firewall stuff. I'm digging into some Windows Server, because I want to start diving into like AWS and cloud, and start learning some of that type of stuff, and not always be heads down network. So a lot of cool stuff that I've got planned for it. Matter of fact, I've got What is this one here? Like I've got, Windows Server stood up inside of eBenG, stuff like that, and I've got C10 is right here. So let me pull up Server 3 real quick. So this is Server 3. I've got what do you call it? I've got IIS turned on this server. No, that's server 3. I want server 2. Over here. That's the system. So I installed IIS on this server, and I was able to open up Internet Explorer, and I was able to pull up that server's IP address. So I want to take this further and further, do DNS. So what I'm going to be doing is a Server 2016. I know it's a bit dated, and there's 2019 and 2022 and things like that out as well. But I've never picked a version of Windows Server before to learn it end to end. So I'm probably going to do that and spend some time going through Windows Server. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go and then I can go look at 2019 and 2022 and look at the deltas, what's new in those versions, so I understand Windows Server better. Active Directory, that type of stuff. Stuff I've never really taken the time to learn. I'm going to do that. Plus, I want to go through Cisco's Firepower platform as well as Palo Alto and Fortinet and fully test those guys out. And I want to do it in a kind of a real-world networking style setup, like what I've got here. So these are some of the cool things that I want to be able to play out with. I want to build out an entire architecture with Windows, with firewalls, and I do want to get F5 load balancers in play there, so I can do F5 load balancing as well. Why does he want to route a 169.254? Seems like a DHCP issue, a PIPA IP address. That's exactly what it is. It's a automatic private IP addressing is what 169.254 is. Because he is a box of rocks. Is DNAC on the menu? So I would love to. I would love to play with DNA Center. The drawback to it is I've got really nothing to work with it on. I have not bought CML27 yet. That is probably going to be coming in the near future. But it's one of those things where it's not off the table. It's just one of those things that I hadn't thought about adding to it. Plus, I'd also like to do some wireless. So what I'm doing now is I was going after the Service Spreader CCIE, but the more time I spent on that, I spent a few months digging into it, and then I just got to the point where I did the first time I was going through. I was just like, I don't need to get another expert level certification from Cisco. I really should, as an architect and wanting to broaden my horizons, I really should start learning other stuff that's outside of Cisco and not just be a router jockey. So I'm planning on spending my time learning other things and being more well versed in other stuff, and learn F5, learn firewalls, learn server, learn cloud, so I can be more widespread. Always have that technical depth if I ever need to go to it. But I'll be a network guy at the end of the day, no matter which way you carve it. But I would like to be able to get a lot of stuff running. But I figured since I have eBenG and the capability is here, to me it makes a lot of sense to stand up, do the networking piece, have the Windows Server piece, have the firewalls there, do some load balancing. I have kind of a network design in my head that I want to put together, but I don't know how realistic it is until I get through Windows Server and I take a look at the firewalls, see what's possible there. Maybe DNA Center is on the menu. Maybe. I don't know. I'd like to. But it's just I want to broaden my horizons before I start going after another kind of pointless CCIE. It's a lot of time and effort. I would see more squeeze for the juice getting my DE than I would ever see getting a second CCIE. So, but to get my question in, have you had success with the ISSU upgrade method? Ran ASDM via Linux box. It's a hassle. I have done an ISSU upgrade once. Um, it was, what platform was that? 4500s? It was a 4500X. This was a long time ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago. Um, I have done it once. I remember going. I wasn't a lead on it. Uh, that I don't know, but I'm not sure. I remember it going well, but I wasn't the person driving the upgrade. But I didn't hear any negatives on it, so um, it's got to be you. Yeah, I have had her. I have heard horror stories of. Um, so yeah, that'd be an interesting. Ran ASDM via a Linux box. I've never done ASDM from a Linux box, um, so I don't know what the capabilities would be for that. Um, I do know you need to run it from Java, but if I remember correctly, oh, that's no, that might be why that connection wasn't working. Um, so I know I'm running it from a Windows box because I have it working here. So I would have to dig into how to make that happen. I know you're just asking, um, but yeah, Java is a pain. That's why I like the new version that are out, the FDM, because now the FDM, it's all web based, so that completely goes away. This is this box right here, FTD7, that works out really really well. So I haven't taken it very far yet. I literally just got it up and running this afternoon. So because I was like, I wonder what could I do with that. Um, so are you a pro at Visio diagrams? Yes, I feel like I am. I can do a lot with Visio. I'm actually make some pretty cool looking diagrams with it. I spend a lot of time in it, but it's one of those things where um, the more time you spend in an application meant for network diagramming, obviously the better you're going to get at it. But what do you actually need to run DNAC? I heard you need a physical CAT 9300 for that too, but that might be old news. So with DNA Center, if you look at, where is it? CCEI. Let's pull this over here real quick. How many Google Chrome? Holy crap! I got a lot of Google Chrome windows open. If we look at this guy and we go back to this and we look at additional resources, you need, they want you to run this, but there's also going to be integration with ICE. So what they basically want you to be able to do more, if I'm based off what I'm seeing here, is security group tagging, SGTs, security group ACLs, stuff like that, to be able to control who can talk to who. So like macro and some micro segmentation. But I'm been told that the CML 2.7, if you go that route with it, the Cat 9K is in beta, so you should be able to do some stuff with it. But I have seen some YouTube videos where people have gotten it deployed, and you can take it pretty far. So the reality of it is I don't know of any production SD access deployments. So I don't know. Maybe it will work. Maybe it won't. I don't know. I have yet to take the dive into it. I think it would be kind of cool to see if I could get it working. So I think there's a way to virtualize DNAC on ESXi as a VM. There is. I actually don't. I don't know if they have that out yet. Cisco DNA Center Virtual Appliance. So apparently they do have. The virtual DNA center has been released, but I wouldn't even know where to find it. So let me pull up the Googles and see if we can find this thing real quick. So apparently it's out. But if I was to look at Cisco's website and we look at downloads, I was able to run it on my lab server and ran pretty good, but it did not incorporate 9300. Okay. Browse all. If we go to probably Cloud and Systems Management. Next to Dashboard. You would think if it's out that it would be relatively easy to find. Network modeling. DNA traffic appliance. I'm not sure where you would find it. Service assurance. Service catalog. I have no idea. What is that thing called? The digital network. Yeah. I'm curious to see what you could find for digital. Yeah, I'm not even sure where you would find it to download it. Okay. Oh, that's because they don't. Okay. Funny enough, they don't call it that. Network and automation, cloud and systems management. Let's go ahead and go back here. Cloud and systems management, and then they call it network automation and management. So I was on the right. Catalyst Center. Here it is. So virtual appliance. Here it is. Yeah, they call it Catalyst Center. So here it is. So 40 gigs. That thing is ridiculous. So I'm just curious now. I'm gonna log in to see if I can't download it. See if I have entitlement. I'm just curious. I would be shocked if I could download it. Oh! What? So I can download it. Yes, I can. So the question is, should I download DNA Center? I'll create a new folder for it. I'll call this Catalyst Center, and we'll save. So yeah, I'm able to download Catalyst Center, and there starts to download. So yeah, I was able to log in, and apparently I have entitlement. Kind of surprised, to be honest with you, but now here's the thing: release notes for this. So how would you install this? VA requirements. Okay, so 7.0 including all patches, 2.1 gigahertz and above CPU. Yeah, that's kind of stupid. 32 vCPUs and 64 gigahertz reservation must be dedicated on the VM, and 256 gigs of RAM. So it's got a hell of a lot of reservations. So yeah, that is ridiculous. So yeah, I can download it. I'm actually saving that to my storage appliance. So as I would not want to save that locally, but yeah, it's doable. Now the only thing I would have to do is what is possible. Can I fully deploy this thing? So yeah, I don't hope that server has space. Yeah, I don't. I'm gonna deploy it as a virtual machine. I've got its. We'll see what happens. No guarantees though. So for anyone needing a hypervisor, VMware Workstation Pro and Fusion should be. I'm waiting to download it, but maybe Broadcom is making up for past. Maybe. I mean, it's possible. A matter of fact, my all of my VMware access is gone for some reason. I can't on my old VMware account. I can't even get into it anymore. So I don't even know what to do with that anymore. So it is what it is. There's a lot that goes in with that. So it's Heavy Light DNA Center. Yeah. As far as I understand it, they just renamed it to be something else. So, yeah, I mean, you pretty much have to buy a new server, right? So, the server I'm going to put it on is a C240 M5. I've actually got to go and I need to put a new license on the server because the license I had for ESXi 8 expired. So I've actually got to go get a new one through the VMware Advantage license or the eval experience. I got to go do that and do the VMware update because I can't even run on a virtual machine right now. So we'll see how that goes, and then I don't think. Let me think here. Storage wise, 10.255. I'm curious now, actually. So I've got plenty of storage capacity. The drawback is none of it is SSD. It's storage wise. I thought I had more than one appliance. Maybe not. It's the nature of business. I've seen Cisco had to start releasing compact versions of Nexus images because, my words, even they didn't expect how big downloads would become. Yeah, that is a very, very good point. So yeah, it's one of those things where I've seen downloads get just ridiculous. Nexus dashboard, if I remember correctly. If I come back over here to Cloud and Systems Management, and we go over here, Data Center Infrastructure, Nexus dashboard. That's 5 gigs just for that. And if you want to run the QCOW2 image, you're looking at 7,500. It's 7.5 gigs. It's just ridiculous. For what? What's the point of having something so big that it takes that much to run it? So it's now I would run the 5 gig image, but yeah, and to your point with Nexus, if we go to downloads and we go to switches, we go to data center switches, Nexus 9K, we'll go to the 93180. Oh, there's so many of them. FX3S, and you go get the system software. You're looking at a little over 2 gigs for a software image. That is kind of ridiculous with how much how big it is, and that's not even the latest and greatest. This one here is 9.4 or 10.4. That's 2,600 megs. That's ridiculous. So, yeah, and that's they're running on their 64-bit platform now, because they used to be a 9.3. It used to not be 64. It was they've upgraded to, I think in 10x they went to NXOS 64. So, but yeah. Anyway, interesting stuff. So I will. Hopefully, thankfully, it doesn't seem to kickstart images or a thing anymore. Yeah, I think that was only on the 7K and the 5K. I don't think any of that stuff exists anymore. Because I remember having to try to get that stuff to work, and if the kickstart image wasn't there, it wouldn't boot. I remember that, that was like, what, 12, 13, 14 years ago, back when Nexus first came out. So, yeah, I didn't understand the concept of that, but, that's a whole other set of issues. So, but yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this deployment. I'm going to go probably get my VMware up and running again, and then maybe I'll go get CML and I can test out some stuff. But I've got plenty of stuff to play with in just this lab alone with that. So we'll see what that shakes out, and hopefully that there will be some stuff in there to play with. So, but that, guys, I'm pretty much gonna tie it off for the night. It's getting a little bit late. I'm gonna go work out and enjoy the rest of my evening. So I want you guys to do the same. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me and all that good stuff that goes along with it. And I will catch. For any of you that are interested in the, I'm going to put a post out on my channel as well. But for any of you that are interested in the coaching sessions, I'm going to make them more of a, if you need it, you can request it, and then I will spin one up. And we'll have to see what days work for you. We'll have to check our schedules. So my goal now is to focus on other stuff. So I'm still going to run the Whiteboard Wednesday because you guys seem to enjoy that. Not a lot of there hasn't been a lot of traction on the coaching sessions, and I understand that because it's oh goodness gracious. Now we got Jacob here. What's up, Jacob? But that's pretty much it for that. There's a lot of stuff to talk about and whatnot. So I'm pretty much going to let you guys go for the evening, and you guys can go enjoy your rest of the night. Like I said, I'm going to go work out. I'm going to keep an eye on this download, and I'll see about trying to get Catalyst Center working and see what that looks like and play around with that. But I'm also got to study for my DE written that I plan on taking it live. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with me tonight. And again, if you want the coaching sessions to kick off, if you need the help or you want to bounce some stuff off of me, let me know. I'll do what I can to try to keep that going. But I'm going to pretty much turn it into, if you need it, it's there if you want to. But if you don't need it, it's, I won't waste my time spinning up calls for no reason whatsoever. So I'd rather go from there. So yeah. Well, hey Matt, I appreciate that. So good stuff there. I will let you guys go for the evening, and we'll do this again. The Whiteboard Wednesdays aren't going away. I'm going to keep them going. You guys seem to enjoy those. So, but if you guys specific stuff that you want to talk about on the Whiteboard Wednesday, let me know in the when I post and stuff like that. I mean, you're technically not wrong. I'll help you out if I can. So, free tax support, I'm in. There we go. Yeah, free. Well, RRTC support. So you guys have a good rest of your night. I'm gonna let you guys go, and I will catch all of you next Wednesday, same day, same time, same channel. You guys take it easy.